what are the most common mistakes that you see people make when it comes to marketing?
The most common mistake I see people make in marketing is they believe something works for someone else and they can just copy it and it'll work for them. What
Mm,
works for someone, even if it's a competitor, a direct competitor, may not work for you. There's a lot of other factors that go into something working, such as being one of the first to try it out or trying it out, years ago when algorithms were different. Like market conditions change as well. A great example of this. I once talked about in a presentation on how we did a sign-on authentication on our website. So when someone comes to your website, they register to create an account. So we did a Google Auth where you can work with Google's like APIs in their code, and someone can click a button being like sign in with Google, and they just click a button and they're off to the races. And our conversions went through the roof, more than a 50% lift in conversion. It was actually closer to the 90% range. Nowadays, if you force people to do that, it wouldn't work as well because people are concerned about privacy, while 10 years ago, there weren't all these privacy concerns as there is today. The point I'm making is just because someone says something works doesn't mean it'll work for you. There's a lot of factors on why it worked for them, but it may not work for you.
got it. So it's not just in terms of, because that sounds like that's in terms of timing, like what worked 10 years ago might not work now, but also from business to business.
Yeah, each business is different. It's like if I were to go and create content and someone told me, dude, if you take off your shirt and you flex and you show your muscles, you'll do so well. Well, look at me. I don't got tons of muscles. I can't create content like that and expect people to buy a calendar of Neil Patel half naked, January through December, and it to sell like hotcakes. It just wouldn't. I'm realistic. But
Mm.
someone else could. And then if it works for them, and then another few people do it, and then a fourth person comes on by who's also jacked and muscular and he decides he wants to do a calendar. Well, if they had similar audiences, people would be like, well, I already got a calendar. There's a lot of muscular guys creating them. This is kind of played out. I'm not going to just go and buy another calendar of this. It gets old. It's like all the
Mm.
celebrities going out there and saying, hey, if we just attach our name to a fragrance or a product and launch it, right? A lot of creators end up doing this. Oh, we'll end up blowing up. Well, now a lot of creators have done it. There's like the Emma Chamberlain who has a coffee brand. Do people really care that much for Emma Chamberlain's coffee? And I'm not trying to hate on her, but like a lot of that's just played out.
Do you think so? When you get a new client or when you work with the, let's say for consulting, do you usually like do some sort of a strategy first up front? So if somebody's like, let's say, starting to work with you or something like that, how would you start? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, so the way we first start working with a company is before we even sign a contract, we do a few calls with them, figure out their pain points in their business, what they're doing right now, and then we actually request data. So we may sign an NDA, get access to their data, and then we slice and dice the data and we analyze, and then we come up with the strategy that we think will help them achieve their goals. And we got the goals based on what they told us from the earlier calls. And then we then do a presentation and say, hey, here's what we want to do. Here's what we're going to do over 12 months. Here's all the deliverables. Here's a team that's going to be on your account. Here's what it's going to take and each person's going to do to help achieve these results. Are you interested in working with us? And then assuming we have a signed contract, then we go and execute on it. But all of that's done pre-signing a contract. And the reason being is you want to make sure that our solution is a fit for you.
That's okay. So you guys do actually put in a lot of work even before you sign on the
Yes.
contract. Okay. So a lot
Yeah,
of
we spend thousands and thousands of dollars before we even sign a contract.
oh, wow. So you're probably really careful about who
Yeah.
you're engaging with, like qualifying and things like that. Um, do you guys actually create content for clients or like for me, I've always had trouble outsourcing content creation, and like a lot of our clients ask us to do content for them, and I've had trouble kind of doing that. So, like, can you kind of follow? Uh, yeah, tell us like what that process is like. How do you create content for other businesses?
So we definitely do create content for businesses. There's different groups of content. There's content that you create for social media, like images. There's podcasts. There's content that you create, like videos. There's text based content that you create for readers and ideally to rank high on Google and other platforms. There's also content that you can create to generate sales, right? So someone lands on a landing page, maybe you're creating content that helps persuade people from becoming a visitor to a customer. And the types of content continually evolve, and there's just so many more like infographics, and the list go on and on. What we do is we again go back to the goals. Like the goals could be, hey, these are the keywords that could drive a lot of traffic and revenue from Google. And then we look at what content do you have right now? Can we use any? In many cases, we had to create it from scratch. We'll do research on who has content in that space right now. What did they release? How do people perceive it? Are they linking to it? Are they sharing it on social web? These all give us signals on if people like the content or not. And then what we'll do is we'll look at everyone who's out there and create better versions. And if we can do that in the long run, you have a better shot of winning. But it is tough. You can't
How
just
much?
go ahead.
How much does like the client involved in that process? Because there's like some industry knowledge that they also have and things like that, right?
Yeah, some industries it doesn't matter too much where you don't really need their involvement. Some, like maybe
Mm.
pharmaceutical, will have specific writers that just focus on the pharmaceutical industry or other specific industries that may be more complex. Some are super technical where there's not a lot of writers for it, so then you have the clients involved and then we work with them. Some you're having AI help with the research and ideation and stuff like that. So there's a lot of tools and people that you can use to get it done.
Like for example, your content, right? I
Mhm.
can't imagine your content being outsourced because you're such a expert in that field. Um, like, do you think so? Do you believe that your content can be outsourced? And if so, like, what part of it can be outsourced versus how where do you need to be involved?
I think it can be outsourced, but not all of it. You can outsource translation and transcription and adapting it to other languages. You can outsource ideation. You can outsource research. But what I have, or you have, or anyone else listening has, is they have something as Google calls EAT, experience, expertise, authority, and trust. And for you to share your own personal experiences within your content, that's what makes it special. It's hard for someone else to go and do that.
Mm. So what is your like? How much time do you spend actually on the content creation part versus like what are the stuff that are your team is doing for you?
I probably spend 5, 6 hours a week on content creation. My team does the rest. I focus
Okay.
a lot on either, maybe actually more. If you actually include like podcast interviews like this, I'm probably closer to 15 hours a week. But I'll do the interviews myself because I consider this content, right? You're going to send me the
Mm.
file. We're going to slice and dice it, use it for social, etc. Um, I also will do the podcast myself, not just podcast interviews, but I have my own podcast. I'll write blog posts myself. I'll create a lot of the social content myself, like the videos and stuff like that. My team will come up with a lot of the ideas. They'll run the process of posting it, adding descriptions, promoting it. But the actual creation of the work, a lot of it I just do. But I enjoy it too.
Mm. Does it start from you, or does it like start from somebody creating the ideas first, giving it to you, and then you're like,
It starts with people giving me ideas, and then I go riff off those ideas. Either I like them and I'll, you know, go based on those ideas and just get stuff cranked out, or I won't like any of the ideas and I come up with my own ideas and then I go and create content based on that. But
that's so
people feed me,
helpful.
yeah, people feed me ideas all the time. If my team feeds me 10 ideas, I may choose one or two of them and then I'll come up with some of
Got
my own.
it. So you're still a very core part of, because like you probably understand what's good, what's bad, what will work, what won't work.
More particularly, my team has a really good understanding of what works or what doesn't work from a view or engagement or visitor standpoint. I have a better understanding than my team on what's going to drive customers and revenue. Two totally
Mm.
different things. A lot of the content I create just won't drive the views, but it can drive the right audience and right customers.
Yeah, so can you elaborate a little bit on that? Because like, a lot of people think that just like they're going for the engagement, the views, the metrics, and I heard you
So
talk a little bit about this. Yeah.
I own an ad agency called NP Digital. So we help companies with their marketing globally. My team came up with the idea of a few weeks ago, and we ended up posting it on social media, and we recorded a video of my morning routine, talking about how I wake up early, what I do, and how to get stuff done during the day. Did well on Instagram and some of the other social networks. I may, on the flip side, have my own content ideas on um, running an SEO campaign globally. It's much more boring. It doesn't get the views, doesn't get the likes and the shares. But companies that watch that are my ideal fit because they're usually a global operation trying to figure out how to fine tune their SEO, and they're more likely to be customers.
Mm.
My choice of content didn't do as well, didn't get me as many followers, but it generates more revenue.
Mm. Yeah. So you talked about, I think on one of the videos I saw, you talked about like the popular problems that people want to solve versus like the expensive problem that people are willing to pay for. What are some examples of those kind of like the expensive kind of problems in your opinion?
Yeah, like popular problems like how to get more social media followers. Well, a lot of people don't want to end up spending money on how to get more social media followers, but they want 1 million or 5 million and they want to be famous. On the flip side, how to create a blog in multiple languages, right? Usually, most people don't care to do that unless you have budget and you can speak
Mm.
tons of languages or you're a corporation selling to many different regions. And usually, the person who has that issue is a corporation selling in many regions. And it's not usually how to create a blog in many languages, it's how to structure a blog in many languages, right? There's a nuance there.
Mm.
Creating a blog could be like, hey, how do I just install WordPress and create it so it can work in multiple languages? But if you want to figure out how to structure it, usually it's a business who's trying to maximize their revenue for all the different languages and regions that they're in. That's something we had a customer who read an article of ours on that, and they gave us a contract for $600,000. Our first contract with that organization was 600. It's now expanded to doing many more things for them. They've been a client for countless number of years, and I hope they continue for many more years after. And they spend millions and millions of dollars with us a year, right?
Yeah, that makes so much sense because we've had clients that are like they wanted to transcribe their entire website into different languages. So yeah, so it sounds like it's like more specific problems first of all,
Yes.
and the high. So how do you? Because like what you just mentioned right now, like I couldn't even like come up with that idea. Obviously, you've had clients that do ask for that. So is that just from experience? Like how would you ask people to go find problems that like high paying clients wanna are looking for?
Yeah, it's you tend to just do a lot of keyword research. So there's tools like Ubersuggest and Answer the Public, and you type in
Mm.
keywords related to your industry. But more so, talk to your potential customers and hear what issues they have. And if you hear commonalities, it'll give you ideas on A, where to start the research, and B, what type of content to create.
That's true. Yeah, I feel like a lot of times, like a lot of the best content is actually the ones that your current clients are already asking you.
It
um,
really is, but we try to overcomplicate things and just make it too fancy.
yeah. And do you, like I also think that some like a little bit of ego plays into it too. Like we want to get that million views or something like that.
Ego's the worst thing. I have a buddy of mine who's like, "Oh, I'm gonna create this broad content. It's gonna do better." I'm like, "Dude, you care about popularity?" And he's like, "No, I don't care about popularity." So then he showed me the views, and they're talking about like, you know, you're not gonna be happy unless you quit your job every single year or something like that, or to make the most money, you need to keep quitting your job, and those stuff like that. I'm like, dude, no one's gonna sign up for your marketing services based on seeing this kind of content. And he kept creating for a while and helped with popularity. And he's like, dude, people are telling me they're seeing my content everywhere. I'm like, they're seeing your content everywhere. They're recognizing you, but no one's giving you money for it. So who cares?
Mm. Do you see kind of do you see that a lot where people start doing the more mass content and then they realize like this is a waste of time and then they kind of scale back? Is that a common
Mo-
trend?
it's one of the most common social media trends we see with individual creators and businesses.
Hmm.
Because
Um,
they get hyped up on like the likes and the shares and the follower count, and it's like, all right, it's like a drug.
yeah. Do you feel like people have to go through that though? Like it's kind of like how people say like money is not important or something like that. But I just feel like those are already people who've made money already that say that, right? So do you think that's like a rite of passage that people have to go through to learn
Not
that lesson?
necess- not necessarily businesses. I think individual creators need to go through that.
Mm,
Businesses, it's less hard to convince them that, hey, don't go for mass content, doesn't do anything.
that's true.
It's much easier to convince a business than it is an individual creator. People want to be able to walk in a room as a creator and be like, man, look at that. So when people recognize me, they say, hey, what's up? I'm like, who cares? But
Yeah, yeah.
I care about that.
Yeah, I also found that true about like when I work with personal brand clients versus like a corporate brand where I'm working with their marketing manager or marketing director. They have a lot less ego and they don't actually overthink as much as like the individual
Yeah.
client.
So we asked, here's interesting. I should see if I can pull up the chart. Okay. This is a really cool thing that we did. We did a survey.
Hmm.
And I'm pulling up my Instagram profile right now. I'm going to my media. We ended up putting out there. It was a really cool survey. All right. And we were asking, all right, so check this out. It's hard to see on my phone.
Hmm.
But we asked people, would you rather have 1 million followers or $1 million? Ages 18 to 25 years old. What do you think they wanted?
Million followers.
79% wanted 1 million followers. 21% said they'd rather have $1 million. Ages 26 to 40. What do you think they said?
$1 million.
53% wanted 1 million followers,
Oh.
47% wanted $1 million. And then, so there's the inverse trend. The younger the people you ask, the more followers they wanted. And it slowly went down as people went older. The younger people didn't care for money as much, but the older people got the more money they wanted. So the follower count, if you look at the graph, the the
Yeah.
the blue line is going down and the orange is going up. It's because the younger people want followers. The older people just care for money. Like ages 56 and older, 88% of them just want $1 million.
Do you think that has to do with like the fact that is it the age or is it more like the generation?
So check this out, right? In the past, we ran a survey with 5,920 influencers, and their average monthly income was $323.19 a month. Influencers with over 1 million followers generate an average income of $6,109.83 a month, which still isn't that great.
Mm,
If you put your money in the S&P based on average returns, you're better off with $1 million. Now, keep in mind that's a revenue number. That's not a profit number.
mm,
That's a big difference. People have expenses and costs. If they're lucky, maybe 5 grand a month in profit. So you're talking about 6% returns. I can put my money in treasuries right now and get 5% right there.
yeah. So
And
so
when
you
we
think
asked
that's
why,
yeah.
check this out. Here was the reasons why people rather have 1 million followers than $1 million for the people who wanted that. The main responses in order: fame, respect, status. In order. People
Mm,
wanted fame the most, then respect, then status.
that's true. That's actually true. Because I feel like that's kind of why people also become celebrities or actors or something like that. I think it's less about the money and more about the fame. Because if you really care about the money, you would just become like a investment banker or something like that.
Yeah, there's so many careers that pay really well that make
Yeah,
way more money than like yes, the Tom Cruises of the world, the Taylor Swifts make a killing, but for every one of those, there's another million that are struggling and aren't figuring it out, right?
yeah.
You have a better shot of just being an investment banker and living a better life.
So okay, so on that note, do you think for this is like more for freelancers and agency owners, do you think it makes sense for them to invest in a personal brand or no?
Our agency, we've been doing this for 7-ish years now. The first year we did around 5 million in revenue. I'm rounding. My personal brand drove 100% of the revenue, close enough to it. The second year we did around 18-ish million in revenue. My personal brand drove 10 million. The third year we did over 30 million, 30 something. I don't have the exact number, but I know it's more than 30. My personal brand drove 10 million. As our agency kept growing, my personal brand capped at around 10 million. I'm not saying I got the biggest personal brand. Kylie Jenner has done much better from her personal brand than I have.
Mm,
Gary Vee has done much better than I have from a personal brand. The point I'm getting at is like personal branding is great. It's a great launch pad, but most corporate brands are much bigger than personal brands. Cristiano Ronaldo has one of the biggest personal brands on the internet. Yet his brand, maybe he's a billionaire, maybe he's up to two max. He's no Coca Cola, he's no Wells Fargo,
mm,
and those are companies you know. There's a lot of ugly companies that people don't know, like Sensora, that generate over $200 billion a year. If
mm,
you want me to pick, I'll take the one that does over $200 billion a year versus someone being walking down the street and be like, "Hey, you're Cristiano Ronaldo. Give me
yeah.
the 200 billion in revenue." I'd rather have that all day long.
So the bigger the scale gets, the less does personal brand matters,
Yes.
in your opinion. What about like on the smaller? Because like you also invested a lot of time into building your personal brand before MP Digital, right? So there's also like if you were, let's say you were starting from scratch, you have nobody knows you, there's no personal brand, and you wanted to build an agency. Would you invest in the personal brand first, or would you just go out and try to build your agency without the personal brand?
I would build an agency without the personal brand. I would hire people who worked at other agencies that are well connected and then go from there. If you look at Accenture, who runs Accenture? Who's the CEO of Accenture?
I have no idea.
Yeah. But you know Accenture, right?
Yeah,
Accenture's a 200-ish billion dollar company. I rather have Accenture than a personal brand. They make more than any other agency out there. They have tons of agencies inside Accenture that offer, the services you and I and others provide.
yeah,
Build a corporate brand. It's much more powerful. McKinsey, Accenture,
yeah,
Deloitte, way more powerful than a personal brand.
yeah. I agree. I see people on like a lot of like my followers that are the freelance designers, copywriters, and things like that, and they're building their personal brand. I'm like, you're gonna get a much better return on investment if you go on LinkedIn and like just network with people and try to get clients that way.
You really do, but no one wants to do it. They think it's boring, it's ugly, it's not sexy, but like that's where the money is, dude. You know,
Yeah.
I, we work with so many large corporations, like no joke. And if I told you some of the names of the corporations, like the Sensoras or Fortives, and the list goes on, no joke, you're gonna be like, I've never heard of this company. Like a great
Hmm.
example. Have you
Yeah.
ever heard of Schneider Electric?
No.
Okay,
Is it?
Schneider Electric. All right, how much do you think Schneider makes?
I've never heard of them, so um, but because you're bringing it up, I'm assuming they're probably huge.
Yeah, but
Is
like
it?
you've
Is it
never heard
like
of
an
them.
electric? Is it like an electric razor or?
No, 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 no. They have $129 billion market cap. $1 billion. We help them with their marketing in Colombia and a few other regions in Latin America, right? It was founded in 1836. It's a multinational corporation that specializes in digital automation and energy management. It's a Fortune Global 500 company. The point I'm getting at is, and I don't think they're ugly. I think they're sexy. But there's a
Mm-mm.
lot of companies like them that most people have never heard of that just
Mm.
print cash. I, you ask anyone who Cristiano Ronaldo is or LeBron
Yeah.
James, even if they don't play basketball or football or soccer,
Mm,
they're gonna know him. You ask anyone who Tom Brady is, even in China, they probably
mm,
know who Tom Brady is. But
yeah.
you ask anyone who Schneider Electric is, almost everyone's gonna be like, I don't know what you're talking about. What nonsense are you spitting out there? But yet, at the end of the day, they make a killing.
So you said something that's interesting. Like you think they're sexy, but other people probably don't. Is that kind of like how kind of like Warren Buffett, like how he he loves like the compound interest and the boring stuff, and he to him it's like the most interesting thing.
It's what makes
But
money. It's
yeah,
dude, everyone wants to do these sexy, cool, fun businesses. The money is made in boring and ugly stuff for most stuff, right? Not all, but for most things
yeah,
it's made in the boring and ugly stuff that no one wants to talk about.
yeah,
Like HR and payroll solutions. You're never going to meet someone who's young and be like, "You know
yeah,
what? I want to create a payroll company."
yeah, yeah.
Paychex is one of the biggest corporations out there. It's like a 40,
That's
50
true.
billion dollar company. But no young kid was like, man, I want to create a payroll
Yeah.
company. This is going to be so fun. That doesn't go through their head. But there's just so much money in this kind of stuff. People all had to get paid.
Mm-mm-mm.
Where are you going to go through? You're going to go through a solution like Paychex. It's a great
Yeah.
corporation. But people take these corporations for granted, yet you need them for just things to work in this world.
So I guess those are also considered kind of the expensive problem you were talking about, like that. the those are the things that we like, like car mechanics. Everyone needs car mechanics, and you know,
Everyone needs their HVAC repaired, right? Your heating
yeah.
and air conditioning. Everyone needs a roof that doesn't leak.
Yeah.
The list goes on and on and on.
Now that you're saying it, like some of the richest people that I know actually own like the weirdest, like they own some like gravel company that sells gravel or like
I won't say the company name. There's this company that sells light posts. You know, light posts like on
Mhm.
the street? We need
Yeah,
lights when we drive, right?
yeah.
They've been doing this for a long time. Generational business and outside investors. How much do you think they make a year in profit? Forget revenue. Light posts. There's many light post companies, but they're one
Yeah.
of them. Take a guess.
I don't know. Probably in like tens of million, hundreds of million.
300 plus million a year in profit.
Yeah,
300
I could
plus
kind of
million
it's.
a year selling light posts on the street. You're never going
And
to
do
meet a
they sell
kid,
to the government or like?
government, cities, but
Okay,
yeah, it's a lot of it's governments. You're never going to meet a kid who's going to be like,
yeah, that's
hot
true.
diggity dog, I want to create a light post business. That's just not going to happen. But you know what? The money isn't boring and ugly, and people don't want to talk about it.
Do you think that's a modern phenomenon? Like, do you think it's because of social media and things like that? People are more like, they're searching for the sexy thing, or
No, they've always been searching for the sexy stuff, and the boring and ugly stuff has always made money. But
oh, so this is always.
this has been going on for a long time. It's just that the younger generation is more stuck on. I know more younger people who want to be influencers than any other job out there, and they're like,
Yeah,
"It's gonna be an amazing career. I'm gonna travel the world." And like the people live in this delusional reality.
yeah.
Like, okay, go do it. Go try
So
to figure out how to make money.
have you always been attracted to the boring stuff, or
I
is that like
have.
a
Since I was a little kid, I always like boring businesses. I never liked the sexy ones.
okay? Yeah, because a lot of things that you do is like sounds like you're really into like numbers and data and
Well,
statistics.
well, when I grew up as a little kid,
Uh-huh.
most kids grew up watching cartoons. And I did watch cartoons too, like on the weekends and stuff like that. But when I was a little kid, you had one TV in the household. My dad would put on Bloomberg in the morning. So I grew up watching Bloomberg and seeing a lot of boring, ugly companies making a ton of money. And I was like,
Mm-mm.
oh, wow. And when I was younger, the biggest corporations in the world were corporations like um, ExxonMobil, right? It was a
Mm-mm.
lot of oil and gas corporations. And I was like, wow, there's a lot of money in petrol. Oh, yeah, everyone needs it to get to work. I'm like, huh. And it made me start thinking, I'm like, oh, there's a lot of money in electricity, pots and pans and
Yeah,
dishes and just basic stuff. Soap, you use soap every single day, right? And you have
yeah,
to
yeah.
keep replacing the soap when it goes out. There's a lot of money in the stuff that no one wants to talk about.
So what do you? How much of like the data, those kind of things, statistics, and those boring stuff? How much of role does that play in marketing versus you think like the creative side, like
It
the
plays a ton of look. Marketing is a mixture of creative and the boring and ugly.
mm,
I think more people do the creative right and the boring and ugly wrong because
mm,
when we look at the data, the number one channel people marketers spend time at in organizations is organic social. Organic social is one of the lowest ROI channels that we see within organizations. It's literally the most spent time on
really?
average when we look at it, and it's one of the least revenue generating channels when you look at an ROI. I don't care if you want to look at first touch, last touch, middle touch, it doesn't matter. Um, but at the end of the day, people still do it. Things like SEO.
What's like the highest? Yeah.
SEO is extremely high, and conversion optimization. Those two, I believe, are number one and two. I think number three is paid ads. I think
Like
that number
conversion
one is
optimization, meaning like the sales page, like
or your checkout flow or funnels. I believe
uh-huh.
conversion optimization is number one, or SEO is. It's one or the other, but I'm pretty sure it's actually conversion optimization number one, SEO number two for return on investment, and paid ads is number three for return on investment.
What about email?
Email's high up too. Number one and number two, I could be swapping around. I don't know which one is number
Uh-huh.
one or which one's number two, but it gives you a rough idea.
So
Yeah.
why do you think most companies spend uh like invest in the social media more?
It's cool and sexy. They're like everyone's on social. Everyone's on social. Organically, you should be there, but you shouldn't be spending most of your time on that. There's
Mm.
other channels that just perform better. Like
So
email marketing is really ugly, but it works. Conversion optimization, moving around elements and adjusting images and modifying text and language to maximize conversion. Boring, but it works.
uh,
Ranking on Google when someone's typing in cheap laptop and showing up for cheap laptops for sale, it works. But
yeah, that's
it's
true.
boring and ugly. That's not as cool as busting on my phone and be like, let me shoot some video. Hey, cool, look at this. I got 1 million likes. Look at all these views. Check this out, boss. What was the extra revenue? None. Oh, okay.
So you would personally spend more on the SEO, the content, like conversions and email more than social media.
Correct.
What what are some when you look at the data usually when you work with the clients, because like I think most people that I know don't even track data properly at least. What are some of the most like important data that you track, and how should like beginners go about doing this?
First touch, last touch. So, what channels are driving conversions? You need to ideally look at the whole funnel and have proper attribution. Um, and the other thing is that you need to end up looking at lifetime value of a customer. Smaller companies tend to optimize for profitability that they can see, not
Mm,
necessarily profitability over the lifetime value of the customer.
mhm,
The difference between a 1 million, 10 million, and $100 million a year revenue company. A $1 million company wants to spend $1 and make $2 instantly or $3 instantly in profit. A $10 million revenue company will spend $1 and they're like, I just want my dollar back and break even, but I'll make money over the long haul. A $100
mm,
million revenue plus company, a lot of them are saying, I'll spend $1, I'll lose 50 cents, but I know within 3 years that customer is going to make me $10 in profit, so it's okay.
mm.
And you can't do that
Uh,
unless you know the lifetime value of your customer, which isn't the
that's true.
easiest thing to figure out for most small businesses.
Like, how do you do that, through like a CRM or something like that?
Data
Or,
and analytics,
uh,
you're tracking it, and you're just seeing, you're looking at data over a longer period of time, and you're just seeing what a customer is worth, and that number
mm,
changes. Some people believe like, okay, I now know it's $30, so I can figure out what to spend on a customer. Just because it's $30 today doesn't mean it won't go up in the future or down. It can go either
mm,
direction. So you need to continually have a good pulse on that. And then the channels, different channels, have a different lifetime value, such as someone coming from
mm.
Google or YouTube, we found have a higher lifetime value for a lot of companies, not all, but a lot of companies, than someone coming from Instagram.
So do you guys have like some sort of a data scientist or something like that that works on, because like when you, because I would assume that most clients don't are not tracking everything properly or not looking at everything properly. So is that one of the service that you provide? Like,
It is. We have a whole data analytics team that helps with this.
okay. And usually, is that like a most of the time? Is that something that you see a lot of people doing it wrong? So like you have to start with that, or is it like, are most companies are doing it pretty like pretty well?
No, no. And over 90% usually do it wrong.
Okay, so it's like one of the first things you have to do, like
Not
setting
necessarily
up all
one
the
of the
right.
first things, but eventually you have to end up doing it. It depends on
Uh,
corporate size. If you're a small business, that's not the first thing you need to do. Just go get traffic and go get sales. If
mhm,
you're starting out, right, you need traffic and sales
yeah,
before anything else. But if you're been around for a while or you're a larger enterprise, of course you
yeah,
need your data analytics to help fine tune your
that's true.
spend.
It's like you said, like what works for one company is not going to work for another. It's like every business, every client is so different that, but everybody wants like the canned answer.
Yeah, but even in the same industry, let's say Airbnb, data and analytics is very important to Airbnb. If I'm creating a new competitor that's identical to Airbnb, but it's cooler, let's just go
Mhm.
with this for a minute. Data analytics isn't as important as just getting traffic and getting bookings and sales, right?
Yeah,
Like, oh, I got data analytics set up, but I have no customers. Whoop de doo, go get the
yeah.
customers
You
first.
need
Go
data
figure out the rest
first.
of it. Yeah. It's like I have a data analytics team set up, but I got no data. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. This is not that useful.
Like so, let me ask you questions because you have a huge team now, and you don't have to work if you don't want to work. um,
That's a big
wh-
misconception. The bigger your team, the bigger the business, the more you find yourself working. But yes,
oh, so you feel that right now? Like, are you working more now
I've
than
always
before?
worked a lot,
Uh,
and you are right. If I wanted to, I could work less. But you can, in theory, work less when you're smaller too. It's just I love what I'm doing, and to really continually grow and push the envelope, you gotta be
yeah.
involved.
It also seems like you get pretty hands on. Like you're you understand like the low level stuff, like when not just from like the high level, but also it seems like you're up to the trend. You know what I mean? So how do you
I
do
don't
that?
understand everything, and there's a lot more smarter people in me in the organization that understand way more than I do. But it's a numbers game, and just making sure that you're continually learning. You have great people who are around you that are smarter than you. But get involved where it makes sense, and don't get involved where it doesn't.
Hmm. But are you involved at all, like in like with clients, or is it mostly like from your own, like your own agency and your own products that
No, I'm
where
involved
you're
with clients. I'm going to fly tomorrow to Kansas City. I'll end up meeting a client there tomorrow.
okay? Oh wow! And is that just because you enjoy it? Because
I,
I found myself like as we
uh,
grow, I find myself getting a little more detached.
I do enjoy it, but I also find that if you're not involved, it's hard to figure out how to improve. Other people may
Hmm.
have ideas, but I think the founder DNA is very important. Brian Chesky from Airbnb gave a great speech about this. Paul Graham created some notes called, like having a founder involved, the founder DNA. I don't know what the article is called, but it was a good article by Paul Graham. But it's definitely worth checking out for people.
Yeah, yeah, I do see that a lot where like a business they get to a certain size and it just doesn't feel the same anymore. That like what they do, the product that they make, and it just doesn't. um. So you're at the same time. I feel like you're so because I've seen like a lot of your content. It seems like you're really good at delegating. Like you don't like because a lot of people like me, like creative people, we have a hard time letting go, control, and letting go.
Or let's rephrase the question. How big is your agency?
Like we're only 10.
That's still a good size.
Yeah.
Okay. Not only 10. 10 is a great size. You're at 10 people. Some of the people probably don't do creative work as good as you. Would you agree with this?
Yes.
Okay. You ideally want to continue to level them up. You've hired 9 others. You're probably the 10th. You may have one person, maybe one person that does some creative work better than you or some aspects of the work better than you. Would you agree with that
Hmm.
statement?
Yeah. That's
As
what's
you
happening. Yeah.
as you scale and you have 20, 30, 40 people, you'll eventually have people all parts of the process, maybe not the whole process, but different parts of it that are better than you.
Hmm.
And you don't really have to delegate. They'll just naturally do it and they'll take it over because they're better than you at it. And I don't mean
Hmm.
that in a bad way. There's always someone out there who's better than us.
Yeah.
And you can always learn and improve. Even like Elon Musk makes mistakes. Just because
Yeah.
he's the richest person in the world doesn't mean he's
Yeah.
perfect. And you can see that online, right? He gets
Yeah.
tons of hate or something off, or
Yeah.
he'll switch his opinions, whatever it may be. No one's perfect.
Yeah.
Does it mean Elon's doing a bad job? No. You gotta delegate and put people in place when it makes sense, and they'll naturally just do stuff better than you, and they'll tell you when they need you. And other than that, like, get out of my way, you're slowing me down. It'll happen just naturally as you
Yeah,
grow.
no, I think that's already kind of how it is now. I think all the everyone in their individual job is better than me in that individual task. I just feel like there's something that comes, like for example, if you know design and coding and copywriting, like if you understand all three, there's something extra that comes with that can benefit you in design.
I
Like even though
totally
that
agree.
person might be more better designer than me, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. Look, if you know all three, you're more likely to just have better campaigns. But eventually you'll find someone who not just knows all three better than you, they also know some other aspects that you don't know, and
Mm-mm.
they're able to outperform you. You'll see once you have like a
Yeah,
hundred
yeah,
plus people,
yeah,
you'll be like, oh yeah, there's a lot of people who are better than me at a lot of
yeah.
stuff, including what I used to do.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I think a lot of it is my ego. It's like nobody can do this better than me, kind of thing.
But it changes over time, dude.
Yeah,
You'll realize that, oh wow, there are people who are better than me. I'm lucky to have them. And
yeah, yeah,
then you're just like, huh, let me work with them. I want to
yeah,
learn and I want to improve.
yeah. So at this point, are you more focused on like culture, how to keep them engaged and things like that? Because like one of the that's like in this type of business, I guess like retaining good employees is probably key, right?
Retaining good employees is the key. Yes, it's not easy. It's very difficult. But if you have a great culture and people love working for you and you're not
Hmm.
trying to micromanage too much, it should work out.
Is that something that you had to learn, or is it something like you just more focused on the marketing stuff and like all the all the stuff that you enjoy, and are you also like have like hiring other people to do the management stuff as well?
I hire people to do management stuff, but I'm weak at management. It's one of my weakest skill sets. So we've had good managers from day one because I suck at it.
Oh, that's a really that's a pretty strong self awareness.
Yeah,
Um,
there's a lot of areas I suck at, more than just management. But yeah, you want to put in people who are better than you at these things because that's how you grow. To not have the self-awareness and believe you're the best at everything is going to be your demise, and that's when people are just going to crush you. Because if you
mm,
think you're great at everything, you're going to lose. You
mm,
know, companies aren't built by an individual. Bill Gates did not build Microsoft. Bill Gates, Paul Allen, Steve Ballmer, and the list goes on. Like I know a guy named Scott Oakey who tried to convince Microsoft that they need to expand internationally versus just focusing on the US. You know how big of an impact that had in their long run,
yeah,
revenue? He made a killing. He was running all of marketing for Microsoft and he was early on, I think like the first 40 or 50 employees or somewhere around there. Made a real killing. But you look at that, and Bill Gates didn't come up with that.
yeah,
Bill Gates is probably smarter than Scott, but you need a team. Elon Musk didn't put rockets into space. It was his team and him.
yeah,
He's still needed. You're still needed, but you
yeah,
need the people around you. LeBron James isn't winning titles and championships. It's him with the team. Basketball
yeah,
is not a one person sport. You need five people on your team on the court at that moment. You can put LeBron James and one other superstar, and if it's just them two versus a team of five, they're gonna
yeah,
get crushed.
yeah. That actually happened, right? Like when the Lakers had like all super, all like superstar, they actually didn't do as well, then
It happens with a lot of teams.
yeah,
There's something called chemistry in sports
yeah,
and being able to play well with each other. Having too many superstars doesn't mean you're going to do well.
yeah,
It's just like, dude, in your business, you need someone to do mundane, boring tasks. And if they don't do those boring, mundane tasks, like in my industry, a lot of it's like keyword research. Well, if someone
yeah,
doesn't do keyword research, the person who's doing
yeah.
SEO and optimizing the website, they may optimize for the
That's
wrong
true.
keywords and no revenue is going to be driven. So you
Mhm.
still need that person doing boring, mundane stuff. And if you don't
Yeah,
have that person in an organization, a lot of stuff in the whole process just
yeah.
breaks down.
That's so true. I feel like it almost like for us in the beginning we were struggling. My wife handles all the operations, and like it's such a small stuff, right? Like just making sure we send out invoices, get paid, and like following up with that, and then just sending out like it's following up with new sales clients, and it's such a small little things. Those things when because I'm so bad at those. But once like my wife got came to the business and she started doing that, like our revenue started like making a
Going
huge
up.
impact.
Make a lot more money when you collect it, you know?
Yeah,
People take it for granted. You need good accounting and finance.
yeah, yeah. You're right. Like I think it's. I mean, I see it in myself, and because maybe like I'm in the creative industry, I also see that. I feel like it's our ego that kind of stops us from growing, like growing our organization. Um, Last couple questions. How much time do you spend right now, like if you were to like put it into pie charts, like on like actual marketing, like content marketing versus like working with your team, like working on your products, like versus learning? Do you know what I mean? Like how would you separate your time?
Yeah, I spend most of my time actually on phone calls and with the team more than anything else.
Oh wow, okay.
Um, and then the next big chunk would probably be creating content. Then the next big chunk would be emails. Then the next big chunk would be working on products. The next big chunk would just be marketing the business. But if I had to break it down, and the biggest one that takes up more than 50% is just phone calls with the team and just
Hmm.
making sure everyone's on the same. When you just have a lot of people, like we're not that big of a company, but we're over 1,000. You really do need, you know, great communication and people being on the same page. And when we're all operating in many different countries, makes it matters even more.
Oh wow. Do you find that with other most other entrepreneurs as well that have big teams? Like, is that where most of the time goes?
I think a lot of their time, I'm not saying it's always the best use of time, but I think a lot of it's just communicating and working with the team and getting stuff done.
Yeah, I guess that's the job of the CEO. um,
I'm not the CEO, but yes, it is the job
oh,
of the
you're
CEO.
not okay. Okay,
I,
I
I'm
would,
I'm a terrible manager, so I try not to be the CEO.
but even then, you still spend majority of your time like communicating with the team and things like that. Wow.
Yeah.
For let's say for like someone who's like starting out, let's say solopreneurs or like just a small tiny teams, people like that. Um, what how much do you think companies should spend, I guess at different stages, like on marketing? Because I can never kind of gauge like if they should spend like 10% of their time and money on marketing versus like 50%, like because some people like I think spend too much time on marketing
I think
versus
when a company's starting out, sales and marketing are some of the most important things to spend time on, and you should spend
mm,
a lot of time on them. Once your organization's built out, you have people continually spending time on sales and marketing, but also on product and support and all the other things that are required and needed. It really depends on the industry and the stage that a business is at. But at the very beginning of a business, if you don't have sales and you don't have marketing, you're not
yeah.
going to do as well.
The last question I have for you is if you were to start from scratch, right? Like no personal brand, no nothing, and you were to like build an agency or something like that, how would you spend the first 3 months of your time?
Networking and going to events. I would create an agency, assuming if I create an agency, if that's what you're asking. If I
Would
did
you?
create an agency, no, I'd probably just be an iBanker or something like that, but or go into finance, private equity. But if I wasn't doing any of that and I had to create an agency, I'd pick a vertical like e-commerce or creators or pick a vertical
Mm.
and specialize in the services for them and go to events and network with them and try to close clients.
Can I ask why, if you were to start over, you would become an iMaker or something like that?
There's a lot more money in things like private equity
Okay.
if you're good at it.
Yeah. So you think that that's something that you just I guess, because from your story, you kind of like stumbled into this world, right? So I guess that's kind of how it happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like, I guess, like, I'm keep trying to ask you like these, like, how do you do this? How do you do this? But like the big takeaway I'm taking away is like there's no really sexy one shot answer for anything. Everything is, you know, you have to try it out. You have to figure it out. You have to. The money, the success comes from the boring things.
Yes.
Kind of.
Success
Yeah.
really does come from a lot of the boring stuff that no one wants to talk about.
Yeah. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that you feel like with the trend? I didn't ask you anything about AI or anything like that, but is there any kind of trend that you see now or anything that you want to talk about that people should know about, you think, in marketing?
A big one is I'll give you an AI one before we wrap it up. We did an analysis on a little bit more than 60 websites. We created 744 articles. Half the articles were human written, half of them AI written. Uh, Humans modify the AI a little bit to make the AI content work fine. Within 5 months, the human written content had 5.44 times more visitors per article on average than the AI written content.
Oh wow! So okay, so there AI still cannot catch up to, like, in terms of
Or
content wise.
it could catch up in the future, but in its
Yeah.
current state, there's a big difference in quality and
Got it.
traffic.
Um, yeah, I think I've seen a lot of your content about AI, so I would recommend everybody to go check out Neil's content. Definitely check out the blog. The blog has so much wisdom in it. Thank you so much for your time. I'll put all the links, NP Digital, your website, your blog. I'll put everything in the show notes. Um, is there anything you want to, promote here or talk about here before we go?
No, thanks for having me. Appreciate it. And this was fun.
Thanks for your time, Neil. Cheers, everyone.